ladies and mostly gentlemen, today this video is pretty much the sequel or follow-up to my previous video regarding the Draenor Orcs. Now since that video, friend of the channel Taliesin has released a video regarding these particular Orcs joining sides with the Alliance. Although the evidence is kinda there, I can assure you that absolutely nobody wants this, including Taliesin thankfully. So let's just go ahead and say the Orcs join the Horde in the upcoming patch, and just ignore the map of Draenor in the building next to the Alliance Embassy with Gorgon circled, because that's totally just some reused asset. So now, we ask the question, who joins the Alliance? Because there's no way that Blizzard will give the Horde more races than the Alliance. I can picture the shit show already. So in this video I'm going to go over some potential allied races for the Alliance to join the Draenor Orcs in patch 8.1 or whatever it's going to be. So before I begin, let's go over some obvious ones that we can just throw straight out the window. Murlocs. As much as you want this, it's not going to happen, at least not right now. Naga. Now I want this too, trust me I really want this, but it's a bit of a logistical issue. Now I know I went over this in my video all about them being playable, but in their current state, it's a no from me. Ogres. I just don't see it happening in all honesty. Arakoa. I know this is a fan favourite, but no, unfortunately. So with those out of the way, let's take a look at some more realistic options that could potentially join the Alliance in the battle for Azeroth. Okay, so let's start off with an obvious choice. Kul Tiran humans. Now these big boys are one of two brand new human-like races to hit the game with Battle for Azeroth, the other one being called Thin Human in the game files. We're not going to discuss those guys because I got a feeling they're going to be used for something else. So now onto these guys. So first and foremost, they have a ton of customization options available for the male and female models, pretty much enough to let them become a new race right away. Blizzard also went ahead and let them support all pieces of gear from the past and present, but maybe they need a little bit of work on the helms, but that's not too hard to fix. Story-wise, it fits in nicely with the current narrative of heading to kul'tiras in search of new allies in the battle. There are also some hints to a potential heritage armor in the game files. Firstly, you've got this model, which looks absolutely incredible, but you've also got several armor pieces which follow the same file naming as previous heritage armor sets, which is pretty damn exciting. As for a mount, you'd imagine these guys would probably ride on some horse with a reinforced back or something, so the evidence is really building up. Overall, I could definitely see these guys becoming an allied race at some point during WoW's lifetime, potentially not with the Orcs, but definitely at some point. So the next race we're going to look at is another brand new one from Battle for Azeroth. That is these Crash Bandicoot looking things known as Vulpera. These fox-like creatures are native to Vol'dun in Zandalar, but some have popped up as pirates in the Freehold dungeon. They use the same skeleton and animations as the goblins, so I guess it would be a good excuse to give the Alliance goblins, much like how they've given the Horde Night Elves in the form of the Nightborn. They currently do support some very minor customization options for the female model only. These include skin colour, ears and face options, but as of right now, the male models do not have any customization options. They also currently support all gear, as they just use the same item models as the goblins. In the game file that stores NPC and playable races, the Vulpera do have an entry. They do not have any data for a create screen background. This is something you'll normally find on races which are only intended to be NPC races. Also, as of this current build, there are no hints at any sort of heritage armor or racial mount, although I would love to play one just so I can ride around on the Legion Fox mount. It'll be like Goofy riding Pluto. I think if Blizzard decided to introduce these guys, it would probably annoy more of the player base than impress them. As fun as it seems, I think it's pretty unlikely that we'll see any sort of playable Vulpera in World of Warcraft. Our next potential choice comes all the way from Argus in the form of the Broken from Cocoon. So the original Broken model has been in the game since the Burning Crusade and has been a much requested race for a very long time. But looking at the model now, you can see that it's aged very badly, although it does actually support gear and some very minor customization options. But in patch 7.3 of Legion, Blizzard went ahead and added a new Broken model for the Broken that are on Argus. Straight away you can see that these guys use a Draenor skeleton and the animations, but they do have a very unique feel about them. It wouldn't be too much of a stretch for the Alliance to get these guys as allies anyway, as they pretty much owe us for saving what's left of their planet anyway. Surprisingly, these guys don't actually support gear in the model viewer, but I don't think it'd be that hard for Blizzard to port over the Draenor items for them. Things like racial mounts and starting zones are already in the game, in the form of Argus and the toolbox from Argus. I wouldn't be against the idea of bringing these guys in, but I would imagine that Blizzard will probably want to leave these guys on Argus for the time being. Our next potential entry is a suggestion made by someone in my live stream. This is the Night Elf Worgen. This is actually something I didn't know too much about, but after watching Crucial's great video on it from last year and reading up on it, it actually seems like a very viable and interesting choice for a new Alliance race. The TLDR is that these are a group called the Druid of the Scythe, but were originally called Druids of the Pack. They are druids who use a pack form to become Worgen, but it's so unstable that they had to be banished to the Emerald Dream. But sometime later, they were released by Valin Starsong, using the Scythe of Valun. I think that bringing the Night Elf Worgens into the Alliance could be a very interesting story, potentially seeking the help of the Gilneans to learn how to control the balance between the Worgen and the Night Elf forms. They could also add some extra customization onto the Worgen model for them to make them seem different to the human variation. An interesting concept for sure, but unfortunately it's probably unlikely we'll be seeing the Druids of the Scythe in-game anytime soon. Next up is a race that was introduced in Myths, known as the Jinyu. These humanoid fish people join the Alliance in the battle in the Jade Forest against the Horde and the Hosen who allied with them. The model that they use is a reskin of the Night Elf model, like every model in the game it seems, so they share the animations with them. They currently do not support gear, but it wouldn't be much of a stretch considering that they use the Night Elf rig. They actually have a full list of classes on the WoW wiki page, including Mage, Monk, Priest, Rogue, Shaman, and Warriors. Story-wise, it would be a case of the Alliance heading back to Pandaria to recruit them for a future battle. It's definitely possible, and with the evidence of the Draenor Orcs being added, Blizzard clearly aren't afraid to go back to previous expansions for new ideas. I actually think they would be an interesting and unique addition to the Alliance, but I could imagine that the Horde players wouldn't be happy if their Hosen allies weren't added alongside the Jinyu. As possible as it seems, I think for now the Jinyu will probably stay in Pandaria, but never say never. At least I hope so. Our penultimate option is the Wildhammer Dwarves. These are a dwarven clan that have been around for a very long time. Primarily based in the hinterlands, they are already an established race inside the Alliance, so story-wise, it wouldn't take much for them to be added to the ranks of playable character. There have been some hidden customization options in the game for quite some time, 6 skin colours to be exact, which include their classic appearance of blue tattoos on the face and head. A main issue with bringing these guys in is the fact that we already have a new dwarven allied race in the form of the Dark Iron Dwarves. Plus, I don't think a blue stripe on the face would be enough to sell them as a brand new race. But I guess they could add some new hair and beard styles along with an amazing heritage armor set which could use a heavy griffin aesthetic. I think after the announcement of the Dark Irons, there are a lot of players that came out and said that they would have preferred Wildhammer overall. I think one day we might actually see the mighty Wildhammers as a playable race, but unfortunately that day is not coming anytime soon, in my opinion. And now our final race, the Ethereals. So this race was heavily rumoured to make an appearance as a playable race before the announcement of Battle for Azeroth. With a heavy presence in the Argus storyline and a brand new model, there were countless posts regarding these guys joining forces with one of the factions. And now, with the addition of Void Elves, these guys wouldn't be too much of a stretch to join forces with the Alliance. It would be an interesting project for the Blizzard art team to try and work out how these Void Mummies would support any sort of gear without losing that recognisable look. I personally love it though. These days, all new races seem to be rehashed skeletons and recolors. Bringing in these guys would be a breath of fresh air that the game needs. They could also very easily share their intro scenario and starting zone with the current Void Elves. Another gleaming issue is the fact that the model actually lacks a face. Not that the face is a major customization option, but it also lacks any sort of hair. So customization for them would be a bit lackluster in the model's current state. But much like most of the races on this list, it's just a pipe dream that's stuck on the cutting room floor. So that's pretty much my list of races that I could potentially see join the Alliance alongside the addition of Draenor Orcs to the Horde. There are a ton of other races I could have featured, but we would have been here all day trying to cover them. Maybe I'll do another video of races I'd like to see added in general, because nobody's ever done that video before. I think if we're being realistic, the only real choice right now is the Kul Tiran humans. They seem to fit a good niche inside the Alliance, and we'll see how their story pans out over the next couple months as we move from alpha to beta to release. I am curious to see how far the allied race system will go though, and whether it will be the only way of introducing new races to the game going forward. I'd also love to see a neutral allied race be introduced at some point, possibly something like a Tuskar. So let me know down in the comment section what race or races you'd like to see join the Alliance in Battle for Azeroth, and the reason why they would make a good fit. I'd love to see what you guys can come up with. Also, if you're interested in playing around with some of these models for yourself, check out Wowhead's dressing room feature. There's a link down below. So before I go, I'd like to give a massive shout out to my amazing patrons and YouTube sponsors. You guys are awesome. If you'd like to support the channel in that way, links are down below. So leave a like on the video if you liked it guys, and subscribe if you haven't. I also have a partnered Discord channel, link is in the description. And with that, I'll see you next time.